Welcome back to the Travel Coach Network podcast. It is I, Sahar Rose DeVore, the founder of the Travel Coach Network and the creator and instructor of the Travel Coach Certification Program. Today, I have a very special guest I'm really excited to share with you. Dr. Noreen Nguru is a multi-award winning British medical doctor and wellness travel consultant, certified in cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness practice. A world first, her trailblazing wellness travel consultancy called What the Doctor Recommends specializes in prescribed wellness travel, a novel solution for individuals and companies keen to address the rising rates of occupational burnout affecting the global workforce. Alongside traditional travel consultations, Dr. Nguru and her team combine personalized wellness travel experiences with supportive coaching to help their clientele detox from technology, recover from occupational burnout, and implement fundamental well-being practices through well-based activities, holistic itineraries, and mindful destination exploration. Dr. Nguru, also Dr. Noreen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. I think, I'm a member of the Travel Coach Network, and, it's a massive
global ambassador. You've also been a speaker at our past last year's this year's Women Thrive Through Travel Mastermind event too.
Yeah, which was amazing. I made a lot of really great connections with women from all walks of life. So that was a really impactful session you put on there.
Yeah, that's something I hear every year from the attendees and the speakers, is that the connections they make, which makes obviously me really happy to hear. But I'm really excited to have you today because obviously, yes, we share a lot in common as we both focus in wellness travel.
Right.
You obviously have that whole perspective and background in the medical industry, and you also are doing something that is super, super interesting. And I think we align so much in what both of our visions, what we do in our business. But first, before we dive into all of that, can you share with us where your passion, your love for travel even came from?
I feel like I've been traveling since I was born because I have. My dad is a diplomat and my mother is an international lawyer. So, I mean, before the age of 11, I'd lived in 5 different countries, and I really feel like that sense of being a global citizen is where that spark for travel kind of stemmed from. And I've never really stopped traveling. So yeah, I think early life experiences definitely exposed me to a lot of cultures, a lot of unique perspectives, and helped me become a bit more grounded, I think, in the way that I view the world and my place in the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love hearing that you were traveling before like you were even born. So it really is
From the
just
womb.
it's in your DNA. And what about your medical background? Where did you get started in that?
I mean, I think I've sort of landed there from just being so fascinated with bodies as a young child. Yeah, I was always in and out of hospitals because I was very accident prone. I've now found out though, actually, I was just diagnosed with attention hyperactivity disorder. So that's probably where that interest came from. I was in and out of hospitals, and I decided like this is a route that I could really see myself thriving in. I'm not somebody who enjoys a 9 to 5 or being kind of like sedentary. I need that spark and excitement, and so I just married the two. I knew that medicine is it's unlike a lot of different industries because you have the diagnostic element, almost like putting a puzzle together is how I describe it. Someone comes in with symptoms and you're like, okay, right, now I need to like play Cluedo and figure out what's wrong with them. And then just my love of science. So yeah, now I graduated medical school in the UK. You can hear from my accent, back in 2016. And I did 2 years of what I think you would call residency. but we call foundation training. And that's really when I started What the Doctor Recommends. So I took a little bit of a break, started to scale the company. I started another business, the Lux and a Budget Club. And then as these have begun to take off, I sort of decided I would take a step back from clinical medicine, and I'm now working in non-clinical posts.
Nice. And what inspired you? Where did your idea for What the Doctor Recommends came from? And tell people a little bit more about that.
I think with a lot of business ideas, you'll find a gap based on your own experience. And I realized when I was younger, I started traveling alone when I was probably a teenager. And I was very much on the scale of when I wanted to hit the ground running, and I wanted to do every single tourist attraction and, every single thing in that destination, because God knows when I would be back there. Then I would always arrive home tired, more tired than when I got on the plane. And it wasn't until I really started working in medicine that I just knew that that wasn't sustainable. Like, my holiday time and vacation time had to be protected. And as much as it is tempting to want to tick off every little bucket list, precious holiday time should be boundaried and really should be used to reset. And people would ask me, like, how do you plan these immersive holidays? Because they seem very different from the way that we are traveling. And that kind of made me reflect and be like, yeah, what is it that I'm doing differently? So I think I was doing this intuitively. And then when I started to research the scientific and physical, mental health benefits of travel in general, that sort of blew my mind open, because there's a plethora of research out there. The problem is it's not comprehensive, and there's not been like clinical trials. However, the anecdotal evidence and the and things like that, it really pushes to the forefront that traveling and just having exposure to new countries and new experiences and having an active way to reset yourself is very beneficial to people's wellness. So that's where I sort of started to get the idea. And then I just had this epiphany about, yeah, why can I not prescribe travel? As in the UK, there's a whole movement with the new kind of like millennial doctor moving towards these like lifestyle measures, preventative medicine rather than reactive medicine and pills and things like that. It's like, let's go back to the basics, what the ancestors were doing. Let's sleep more, let's move more, let's eat more healthy, and let's travel more. Let's expose ourselves, let's be nomadic again, let's expose ourselves to new cultures and have these cultural exchanges that really help us grow as human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And like I mentioned, like that's a lot of the stuff I'm talking about in my upcoming TED Talk, because I think that's something you and I know a lot of people in the Travel Coach Network and just travelers in general really believe in,
Absolutely.
Using these experiences to learn about other cultures and other ways of life and other belief systems and traditions, really just can build a better world together as we are more accepting and understanding of one another. And also that all goes in hand with improving our well-being. And where did your idea to start going from, the medical industry to What the Doctor Recommends to wellness travel coaching and what it is that you're doing now? Where did that kind of transition come in?
I really feel like it's been a steep learning curve, because the business model that I researched and came up with back in 2018 when I founded What the Doctor Recommends is very different from what it looks like now. Back then, even though I recognized these pragmatic and beneficial aspects of travel, I hadn't done enough research about what happens afterwards. So what the doctor recommends now looks at how we can have long-lasting transformation. So using travel as a catalyst to spark that introspection and that newfound confidence and that more positive outlook on life. But okay, how are we going to be able to translate that going forward into your day-to-day life? Because I was reading research that said the positive mental health benefits of travel only last about 5 weeks. And I think this is true. You probably found this as well, Sahara Rose, that when you come back from a trip, you're great for like a couple of weeks, then you're sort of like getting antsy again, and the dredge of everyday life and the monotony and things like that, it's building again. So that made me look at travel in a different way and be like, so how can I support my clients to come back and stay refreshed and be able to implement the changes and just that change of that self-growth that they've had during their trip? How can they now translate that moving forward, so they're not operating in this cycle of boom and bust, of getting overworked, overstressed, needing a wellness travel prescription, getting overwhelmed, so how could we prevent that?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any recommendations or an example of something that someone can do so that doesn't kind of subside after 5 weeks of being home? Because I can totally see how that can happen, coming back into your daily life and daily routines and daily stresses and all the responsibilities and everything that we have as human beings. Those effects of that time off or that holiday really do subside. Any examples that you give?
Yeah, because I've read a lot of research, and just from my own personal experience and professional experience, so what clients have been describing to me over the year, I feel like those that go away with more intention, those who actually set goals and reflective goals of thinking about what it is in their life that has made them this burnt out, tend to come back with new ideas about how they're going to implement change in their life, rather than, because I would hate for travel to be seen as escapism in a way that's negative, like running away from the troubles. It's more just, I did an exercise actually recently. I did a workshop, and I love this example. So I wrote on a piece of paper, and I got attendees to close their eyes, and I put the paper like right up close to their face. So obviously they couldn't read anything that was on there because it's too close. So I said, okay, take a couple of steps back, and suddenly the paper's smaller. You can read what it says. You have more of an overview. And that's how I see travel. It's an act of escapism that is great in a way that it gives you space and time to think, to realign, to be able to set boundaries and ground rules for yourself, thinking about, you're enjoying yourself, but you're also thinking, how can I make change in my life? How can I maintain this sense of work-life balance going forward? With my coaching programs, I implement mini challenges, depending on what they've said in their prescription questionnaire, mini challenges and things that help them build up resilience. And then, part of that in the journal will be like, so what am I going to do when I get home? How am I going to make a change? And I think that gives people a sense of ownership over the transformation. And yeah, it's really that hope. I check in with them 1 month after they travel, then 3 months after, just to sort of be like, how are things going? Do you need any further support? But yeah, for me, that's been a thing that I definitely recommend, is to be in the moment, be mindful, and journaling and setting an intention and goal from the outset, so you're focusing on that as you're going through your holiday.
Yeah, I love that you say that too, because people always ask me like, what is a travel coach? What's the difference between a travel coach and a travel agent or travel advisor, tour operator, or any other sort of travel professional role? And it's really about that intention, right? It's about helping people set intentions for their trip. So I love, and like I said, you and I align in this because we both are in this holistic wellness belief and understanding and appreciation for ways that travel can help boost our mental, emotional, spiritual well-being outside of what I always say, gyms, spas, and yoga retreats. but it's really just being able to set those intentions and use travel as a tool to help us thrive, whether it's in our personal lives, our well-being, our professional
Yeah.
lives, as well too. So it's
So I really love that. I love like and this is one of the reasons why because I started What the Doctor Recommends before I knew about the Travel Coach Network.
yeah,
And then when I found the you know the story, when I found the Travel Coach Network, I was like, oh my gosh, there are other people who are like advocating for using travel as therapy. And I felt like in the space that I was in, especially, I can understand it though. It seems a bit woo-woo to people who come from a scientific background. Like, are you advocating for people to basically say like they go on holiday and they're suddenly cured of depression and
yeah,
anxiety? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. You know,
right.
it was really important for me to do my own research and to focus
Yeah.
on the after effects as well. But I also was like, but there is research that shows that
Oh, there's tons of research.
there's
Yeah.
tons of research actually. It's just that, you know, some of it is I wish there were more clinical trials and it was a bit more systemic, but you know, anecdotal evidence and scientific evidence all says the same thing. They're really great positive benefits to traveling. From even I read research recently that was talking about heart disease in men is reduced if they travel more than twice a year. And I
Yeah.
thought, how can that be? But it's all based on the when we think about wellness, those 7 dimensions. So people who actually use their vacation time are honoring their kind of occupational wellness as well as their physical and mental health wellness. They're reducing their stress. So therefore they're giving their heart time, their vasculature time to not be in a heightened state of stress and cortisol
Right.
and high blood pressure. And it makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I agree with all of that because I always found it interesting that companies, that's why I loved in your intro where you talked about burnout in the workplace, because that's the area that I started in as a wellness travel coach and really
Mm,
dove into, especially in the business travel industry. I always found it interesting that companies, there is all this research out there talking about the burnout problems among employees in the workplace. Especially in the US, how employees
yeah.
weren't using their vacation days or weren't using them appropriately. So the US Travel Association did a project time off in 2016 or 17, I believe. The report's out there still, very interesting information. But I was like,
Mm.
why are companies not paying attention to this? And sure enough, a pandemic happens and now they all of a sudden care about well-being and everything. But yet there's still not that much being done outside of gym memberships and, yoga instructors on Fridays at,
Mm.
5:30.
I do
Um,
think the US is like is the worst for that, to be honest, in the developing in the developed world, because it just boggles my mind that I didn't even know that certain states they don't have a legislation that ensures workers get time off.
no,
Like it's I didn't
yeah,
know that. It's recently I talked to someone and they
yeah,
said that, and I said it doesn't make sense because we know that productivity and stress related illness like rises when you don't have adequate rest.
well,
So
there's a lot of stuff that, the information is all out there, but that's why, like, they know this. It's just, it's the work culture, but
culture, maybe,
obviously
yeah.
that's all going to be changing as we still sit in this great resignation. But it's a whole different conversation and
Yeah, no, it
podcast
is.
interview.
It is. But
Um,
this is why like the travel coaching, yeah, is
yeah,
I think is really
especially in the
pivotal.
wellness industry, is so important. So talk about wellness travel. Obviously I have my own definition of wellness travel, and the wellness travel industry, where you and I were talking about this
Mhm.
before we got on the recording today, is that it's really booming. That wellness travel is soaring, yet it's a very diverse type of industry. What does wellness travel look like or mean to you?
Mm. I think I for me, even before I got into the space, I used to think that wellness travel was very um you know, Eurocentric, very Caucasian centric, and a lot of the advertising is just of rich white people, and the price points are always very high, and it didn't seem accessible, to be honest. But I think as we now do more work, people like the Black Travel Alliance and those who are advocating for changes in basically the representation of wellness travel, I hope that the future of wellness travel becomes more inclusive. It becomes a space where there is diversity and there is this accessibility for people on all budgets to be able to afford a wellness trip. Now, I also say that saying that, you know, I realize with my own services, yes, my services are tailored towards high net worth and people in high pressured careers, because this is mimicking my own kind of expertise and my person. But, you know, that shouldn't mean that somebody who's a lower income earner is unable to access wellness through travel. So I recently came up with a behavior-based quiz. It's a model based on all the clients that I've seen and research, and I put people into categories, four categories. So if you take the quiz, you will either be an experienced collector, or you'll be a nature wanderer, or an intuitive nomad, or a culinary adventurer. And these definitions, for me, I feel like it's more beneficial for people to take a quiz and find out what type of wellness traveler personality they have, so that they can incorporate little things into their travel. It doesn't have to be you go to a £4,000 spa or wellness retreat. It can be, if you're a culinary wanderer, okay, you know that you get your sense of wellness from experiencing and tantalizing your five senses. So when you go on holiday, you know, why not take a cooking class? Why not go on a food tour of the street markets? And, you know, if you're a nature wanderer, you know that you glean that restorative sense of well-being from being in nature. So your sense of wellness might be going on a hike, might be starting your morning sun gazing on a beach with the sand between your toes, and that builds your sense of wellness, rather than, you know, it has to be a yoga spa or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the term wellness travel is, there's so many different ways to look at it, and there's so many different ways to achieve it. And there's the intentional wellness travel, which is really what we see now when we go to Google and you were to say, well, you know, I think the initial mindset for wellness travel right now, and this is something that I aspire to, you know, kind of disrupt this space, is that wellness travel right now is targeted towards those who say, I want to go to a spa, I want to go to a retreat, I want to go to a wellness center, I want somewhere that has any of these sort of ideas. Because if you Google wellness travel right now, most likely you're going to get platforms and properties and hotels that really had, you know, because the wellness travel industry was developed by the spa industry. So that's really where the rhetoric all comes from. But yet it's such a disservice to stay within those confines of wellness travel, especially in today's world of tourism and moving forward. And we, just like travel is personal, wellness is personal, it means something different to everyone. So really helping people tap into, you know, what does a wellness experience look like for you, and how do you want to feel upon return? You know, those kind of questions is really where the coaching aspect comes into play, right? For those who are curious about, well, okay, I understand that, you know, Dr. Noreen is a doctor and a medical expert, and you know, she has, you know, these higher end kind of clientele, and she is the expert in the wellness space. But anyone hearing about wellness travel, or just travel coaching in general, is like, you can help people tap into what wellness means to them, and what a travel experience, a transformative travel experience looks like for them. And really, by really just understanding the wellness benefits of travel, whether it's our mental well-being, spiritual, well-being, our emotional well-being, our social well-being, as so much more. And even just the power of nature, the power of human
Right.
connection, all of these elements go under the umbrella of wellness travel. And that's what we're seeing kind of transform more and more,
And
which is
that's the
exciting.
educational part, as you're saying, I
Yeah.
think is so vital. Is yes, it's not just the services, it's knowing that, oh, the reason that I feel, because I've interviewed so many people that say they actually don't know why they feel better on holiday. They're like, I don't know why, but I just feel better. Then when you get people to think about what it is that they've been doing on holiday, and it's like, oh, I love the sound of the sea. I'm like, oh, that's something called blue therapy. You
Yeah.
know, look at this. And suddenly they're like, oh, there's a reason. Okay, so
Mhm.
I want more of that. I'm going to try and do more of that. So
Yeah,
it's about that
absolutely.
education, as you said. Yeah, it's really pivotal.
Yeah, it's like me. I always thought that I always naturally gravitated towards bodies of water. When I traveled, of course, I always found
Right.
places that had very pristine lakes. I love to be, I'm a beach bum. And also where I chose to live too. In Chicago, I lived near the lake. So I thought it was because I was an Aquarius and that I just love the water, but there's so much research behind the benefits of blue spaces,
Mm.
like you're talking about. But um, as we kind of wrap up here, what are fun, first of all, is there a fun fact I like to ask all my guests that you can share about yourself? And it doesn't have to be travel or business related.
Okay. Oh, I'm such a fun person. I don't know what to pick. Okay, yes. I actually used to write and sing gospel music. So
Oh,
maybe one day I'll give you a rendition of something. But
oh,
yeah, that's like a fun fact. I love music, and yeah, in another life I would have been yeah, a blues or jazz singer. But
oh,
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we're gonna have to get a taste of that somewhere, someday in
A
some TCN
TCN
event.
karaoke night.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. And tell our listeners where they can learn more about you, your businesses, what the doctor recommends, your coaching. And of course, we're going to share all those in the show notes as well.
Oh, thank you so much. But I'm all over the internet. So if you just type in Dr. Noreen and Nguru, you'll get access to my website, and you'll have access to some articles where you can really learn about my mission to really empower individuals and companies to look at wellness travel as an actual novel solution to overcoming burnout. Visit my website, www.whatthedoctorrecommends.com. I have some fabulous courses, self-directed programs at a lower price point that I hope that everyone can use, whether on their travels or at home, to really elevate their sense of wellness. And I'm also on socials. TikTok and Instagram are where I hang out at the DR Recommends.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you. And again, I'm going to be sharing all of Dr. Noreen's
Thank you.
links in our show notes for her Instagram, for her websites, and more. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yay,
It was such a pleasure having you. And be sure to anyone, all of our listeners, to follow the Travel Coach Network on Instagram and Facebook, and visit us at thetravelcoachnetwork.com. Give us a hello. We look forward to having you in our TCN global community on Facebook, and hopefully having you as a guest on our podcast as well. You can find out more about our free travel coaching community, and you can also grab your free beginner's guide to travel coaching as well. All of that is in the show notes, along with Dr. Noreen's links. If you know anyone who may be interested in travel coaching, please be sure to send them our way to our podcast. We truly appreciate it. And until next time, my fellow wanderers, bye for now.